Hi, folks. You're Tacitus today. Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio radio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about someone I know or that we know, and I've had a bit of a busy social calendar over the last few weeks. And for the international listeners, this is the summer Christmas holidays in Australia. It's the height of summer now. In fact, today I think it's going to be something like a little bit over 100 degrees, certainly where I am anyway, in the Fahrenheit scale, of course. So we've been having barbecues and get-togethers. But there's a lady from 6 months ago or thereabouts when we last saw them, which was, of course, the winter here. And she's a sort of a corporate hack type, an affirmative action hire herself. Husband's got some cozy job in the public service where he never seems to do anything or be accountable for anything. His job is just to, from what I can tell, is to make sure that the environment for diversity, equity, inclusion is running at fever pitch all the time. And his wife, sort of has the same view. They've got senior high school age type children. But 6 months ago, she was very excited and was telling us that they've the company she works for, which is a big brand name company, and they rely almost exclusively on government contracts, all of which are organised in the back room with a series of sweetheart deals and all sorts of what I would view as corrupt practices, but certainly not commercial practices. She's always talking about diversity and the biggest problem, blacks are oppressed, climate change. She's very much one of these sort of people. And she's not a moron, so neither is he for that matter, and they're both white, so straight. So I'm surprised that they've succumbed so completely for the message. But when you're in their sort of situation, they've inherited very well, both of them. So they're living in areas where they would never see a black person. And maybe it's only when they go retail shopping they would ever come across one, and even then that would be rare given the places they would shop. But so she's in their diversity, equity, inclusion. They've got a point system for how diverse each department is, and she's like a department head. And if you hire a straight white male, fully qualified, fully capable, suitable for the job, straight white male, you get 0 points for diversity. And every department or group has its diversity points target, 100 points or whatever it might be. So you have to hire a certain amount of non-straight white males to meet the target. I mean, this is so discriminatory against straight white males that it's insane. I mean, it's got to be illegal, and yet no one bothers. And she, as a straight white woman, she celebrates it. Now she's got 2 straight white sons. I mean, is she even thinking about the world she's creating that they're going to have to face when they go into the great wide world? But after they've gone through college and they're out looking for employment, maybe these people are well connected enough they can get the kids some cozy jobs. But anyway, she's excited about all this sort of stuff, and they weren't meeting their points target. So if you hire, for example, you hire a straight white woman, female, so you get 1 point for that. And they've got this sort of double, as what she explained it to me, at least they've got this sort of jackpotting type, doubling up point system. So if she, if they hire not just a white woman, but a white lesbian, then instead of just 1 point for being a white woman, it's 5 points because it's a lesbian. If it's a black lesbian, then it's 15 points, and so on. So if you just hire 3 proverbial one-legged black lesbians, you would make your entire budget, as in diversity and inclusion points budget for the head count or for the year or whatever their cut-off points are. So the real prize that where they gag with excitement is again when the black lesbian comes along. Now the problem they've got is that one-legged black lesbians don't typically apply for these jobs, so they can instead of saying, well, they just don't apply because they're not qualified, instead of saying that, well, the reason they don't apply is because they're oppressed by the fucking Nazi patriarchy. And the guy there, the straight white male husband, he sits there quietly and passively while the wife talks about the Nazi patriarchy, this sort of thing. He doesn't say a word. He's got this sort of stupid grin on his face as he's listening to it. I don't know if it's a grin of derision or a grin of sort of passive acceptance or what it is. He sort of nods along sometimes. But she was the one who's sort of the activist, possibly because she's an affirmative action hire herself, and there are no consequences for living in that fantasia world that she lives in. Nonetheless, when we were having lunch with them and other people, there were quite a few people there, having lunch with them, I think it was like June or July, something like that, last year. She was quite excited and animated that they've hired not a black lesbian, they've hired a black woman, so black and female, who has learning difficulties, and so that's like extra bonus points. So they were X amount of points short in their diversity points sort of allocation, and just by hiring this one woman meant they not only met but exceeded. This black woman, they not only met but exceeded the diversity points, and this was in itself very exciting as far as she was concerned, at least. So they hired this woman, and that's the last I heard of it, and didn't really think much more about it other than, what a fucking insane world we live in. But and I can't say anything like that at these gatherings because most of the people there have that view. They live in the fantasy world. And again, because they're financially shielded from it, they're not accountable for the insanity, or they don't suffer as a direct consequence of it, or anything like that. The kids go to expensive private schools, so they don't have any situation where their life is impacted negatively by these things that are going on, whether it be mass migration or the insane diversity thing. They're still getting well-paid jobs, and she's still getting affirmative action jobs in companies that don't have to compete in the marketplace to win business, and they get cozy government contracts and so on. Anyway, let's move along. So we met them some days ago, and boy, has the situation changed. We're talking about someone who's maybe not so much on board now with diversity, equity, inclusion. So it went something like this. So they hire this, the black woman. And I didn't realize this, but there are sort of informal networks and places, often sponsored and funded by NGOs around the place, or strange groups that receive generous government grants that seems like almost under the table funding, as far as I can tell. And you can go there and actually place an order. Look, I want a one-legged black lesbian, and they'll find somebody for you. And I need it to make my diversity and inclusion points quota. That will fix it, and then you pay them a fee, and they do that. So anyway, they got this. They didn't have a black female on staff, so they went to some outfit, and they we'll fix you up, and no interviews or anything. They just give this person the job. Remember, the person, it's an affirmative action hiring, but they're giving the job just to make a diversity and inclusion points quota. They're not actually hiring them to do a job. Now, if they end up doing a job, well, I suppose that's just a bonus, but that's not the purpose of the hiring. So this person is just gifted the job. No interview, no. Do they meet any standard? Do they have any meritorious reason for hiring? No. They are just to make a diversity points quota. Fuck. Again, the insanity of that. So this person gets hired, and so she's telling me this, and I'll say that this is the end point. The end point is the person left, and then is now suing them for racism, and it's actually going to go to, or in the process now of going to some, like international human rights fucking tribunal or some shit. And this white woman is telling me about it. She's already been dragged into a couple of sort of cross-examinations, and she is like really on board with the diversity and inclusion. So really, you'd struggle to find somebody more sympathetic. But still, she's getting beaten up because she's white and straight, and therefore she must be a Nazi or a closet Nazi. And she's not used to being treated this way. She's used to groveling and prostrating herself in front of the diversity and inclusion god. And now, in fact, she's getting slapped around by all these people. You're a Nazi. We don't believe you. You're a liar. And she's getting this sort of treatment. And she's absolutely, alien to her. She just can't comprehend it. And she's not coping too well, by the way. And this is really a sort of a dose of reality that she's having to process, and she's not coping that well. So this is, as she explains it to me, at least this is how it worked out. So they get the black affirmative action diversity quota chick starts, and they just want to give her, they wanted to do something, and even for her own good, to keep her occupied so she doesn't sit there getting bored. So they started giving her what they thought pretty basic work to do, but she couldn't even get through that. They're not sure whether she can even count to 10 or whether she's even literate. But they're too frightened, or were too frightened, to give her to actually even judge her or assess her on that, because that might be demeaning and So this chick's she's an oppressed class, and so she gets a free pass. So they thought, okay, well, what we'll do is, something that could be done in an hour by a normal person, we'll give her the whole morning to do it. Still, couldn't do it. All right, then, well, something could be done in an hour by normal, we'll give her the whole day to do it. Still no. All right, then, well, we'll give her, she can choose, we'll give her an option of the work to do, and then she can choose the work and then finish it in her own time, when she'll let us know when she's done the work and when she's ready. But that didn't produce anything at all. So they thought, well, we can't give her anything to do that actually needs to be done. So we'll give her, like you'll give kids coloring books or something like that to just occupy them. And I remember at school there were kids where they I don't know, dyslexic or what it was, but where they was just so unable to absorb information or respond, they just sat them in a corner with coloring books, and that was it. Just keep them occupied, just keep them out of the way. And so they effectively did that. Well, not effectively, they did do it with her. Now on top of that, she had her not coming into work was they would be lucky after the first week or so. They'd be lucky if she would turn up more than 1 or 2 days for the week. Wouldn't call them or tell them or anything. She would just not come in, and then would come along a week or so later and go, oh yeah, well, I had some black tribal family business to deal with. Now, when they queried, said, well, look, you really should let us know. I mean, just so we know that you're okay and everything. She apparently comes back with, well, if you do that, you're oppressing me because you're demonstrating lack of sensitivity to my cultural background, so that's unacceptable. So she knows every benefit she can extract and extort, and she knows every point that she can threaten them on, but is unable to count to 10 or write a sentence or do any work. But she knows everything. That's my cultural background. You're a racist. So apparently this goes on. So they, instead of so this is bullshit. We're not putting up with this crap. Instead of that, they bend over backwards to accommodate that. Okay, well, if you need to take time off for cultural awareness or cultural sensitivity or cultural what the fuck ever, that's fine. You can do that. So, and then she comes out, it's like she's got problems with a family member where that she's staying at their place or they're staying at her place, something like that. And there's some family drama going on, so she needs time off to deal with that, with pay, incidentally. This is not time off, no pay. This is, so they build into their system, time off for cultural reasons, time off for racial reasons, time off for family reasons, time off for such and such, and they just create almost this special employment contract for her, which they're really developing and inventing as it goes along, simply so she doesn't transgress. So if she doesn't do any work, that's okay. She doesn't even turn up, that's okay. And so on and so forth. So they offer her, so this woman tells her various courses in, things like, learning to use graphic art software or a whole range of stuff. They offer, and because of she comes, they create another thing. She's a disadvantaged person, so they say we can do all that for free. We'll pay for it. Doesn't even bother to go to any of those things. Now, after sort of a number of months, 3-4 months, I said, look, if we're going to pay you, you have to turn up. So from now, if you don't turn up, we're not going to pay you. We accept that you're not going to do any work or anything worthwhile or useful. We accept you're going to sit there and do fuck all, but you have to turn up. We're going to pay you. And so this was considered as an outrage, and so out of something like whatever it was, like 100 days of supposed employment, she'd only turned up in the office for like 15 of the 100, and so they paid her for the whole thing. So then they say, she says, well, that's an outrage. How dare you expect me to actually turn up? I'm quitting because you're being racist towards me, and and that lacking cultural sensitivity and so on. So they were. So they actually gave her a severance package of a couple of months' pay. I mean, no white person would ever get this, and certainly no male. So she's actually walked out the door with $10,000 or something, and has been paid for all that time while doing nothing, not even attending. So she's done very, very well out of this, the black woman. So anyway, she goes. Next thing you know, they've got a lawsuit on their hands with this woman. The one who's telling is actually named directly as being the mastermind of the evil Nazi fascist racism. And so she went along to the first hearing or something like where the participants get together to discuss and try and work something. It's supposed to be some sort of arbitration, I guess you'd call it. But the reality is it's heavily weighted to the whoever the person with the greatest amount of victim points is. And so she attends this. And when I thought she was going to burst out in tears when she was telling her. She goes there thinking that given all the breaks they've given this woman and the black woman, and given all the, given the very generous, severance, but given that the woman quit herself and she wasn't fired, and how they gave her all that time off and this, that, the next thing for cultural sensitivity and so on. She thought, the white woman thought when she goes to this arbitration hearing that as soon as they hear everything that they've done for this black woman, that it'll be the end, the last 5 minutes, and she'll go home again as having her moral superiority all intact. But instead, she was roundly attacked, and they went after her and accused her of, you might have been culturally sensitive, according to a white person. But and they really went after her, and she came out. So she explains at the hearing, feeling like she was she's worse than Hitler. So that's where, and there's a final determination yet, but the company lawyer is saying, well, we should we offer some money? If so, how much? Now my reading of it is just purely a shakedown. They'll probably have to give this woman $100,000 just to get rid of the matter. But it goes to show just how dangerous this affirmative action, hiring the proverbial one-legged black lesbian is. Now, not every situation will result in that. This woman was supposedly 50% black. I don't know, but they they've got a guy who's 10% black who works somewhere, but he's apparently quite good. But I thought, would you know he was black? 10% black's not much. I mean, even there meant just a very slight swarthiness in the skin. Even that you probably wouldn't get with a 10%. And she's, I didn't even know he was black until he told me. Well, 10% black's not black, for goodness sakes. But according to their point system of diversity in this company, 10% black is black. and that allows them to chalk up the diversity points. But bear in mind that every time they hire a straight white male, that's 0 diversity points, and they treat their diversity points quotas very, very seriously. So they create their own problems, in my view, having that insane fantasy world of victim points. You've been fantastic to say your pushback channel, and thank you for listening.